Welcome to Tech Startup Stories, hosted by Natalie Binns. This is the podcast that takes you behind the scenes of the B2B startup world.
Hi, I'm Natalie Binns, and I'm the host of Tech Startup Stories. This podcast is really designed to share the unique and challenging journeys of all the people that are building small startups to scale-ups in the tech space. My background? Initially, I was in sales, and then I moved into marketing, and I've been lucky enough to work with some amazing tech companies. But my passion is really startups. And that led me back to helping tech startups set up their marketing and go-to-market functions where the budgets are tight and the resources are few and far between. So let's get into this week's podcast. Hi, Mick. How are you?
I'm all right. How about you?
I am very well, thank you, and super excited to speak with you today. So for those of you listening, I was introduced to Mick recently by one of our other podcast guests. So I think it's quite a small world out there. I feel like a lot of you know each other. Where do you guys meet? How do you meet other entrepreneurs and CEOs?
Yeah, it's a bit of a clique. So there are a few groups of founders, invested founders. There are a few syndicate in the UK as well they're very proactive in backing very early stage businesses, and that's where I met Tom Rudney, who's the founder of Diamond Genius. He's been helping us try and grow and making intros financially as well a little bit before he went full time on his own business, and now we're kind of giving him back as much as we can. So we work together, and we don't work together, but we help each other as and when possible. And yeah, he's a great guy. So when you made the intro, I was excited to be part of the podcast and have this conversation today.
Well, you're also from a sort of similar background, aren't you? Because I know quite a few CEOs and entrepreneurs and founders like yourself have come from either a B2B tech world or a B2B sales world. And I know you've got a very lengthy career in sales. Tell me a little bit more about your journey in the tech world and how you got into sales in the first place.
So I go into sales because I thought it was very similar to my previous career. So before being a salesperson, I used to be a professional athlete. I used to represent once in gymnastics and tumbling, and it's a very similar type of work in terms of being objective driven, being having to perform on specific um, instances when there's an audience, there are people judging you. Um, Performance based with a high level of competition, and sales is very much the same. So I started my sales career as an SDR, picking up the phone, trying to get people on a meeting with my AE, my account executive. And despite the fact that there was no physical involvement to the job outside of like literally picking up the phone, and it was very much cerebral, much more than sports. Everything else was very much the same. So target based, competitive, high pressure. You have to perform when you've got someone on the phone. If you miss that time, that opportunity, the opportunity is gone. Like you would miss a world championship, you don't go back to that same world championship. You have to wait for another 2 years to then have an opportunity again. So it felt aligned, and then I felt very comfortable doing the work. There's delayed gratification in there as well. You don't get the results right away. There's a process to get there, and then the more you then improve your performance, the better you do. And I moved my way up from SDR to account executive, closing my own deals, to enterprise account executive, selling big deals, to first line manager, managing a team of closers, and then VP of sales and services. So new logo and existing. And then I finished in a company called Outreach.io, who's doing sales tech.
Know them very well.
Yeah. And then that triggered essentially that was the end of the employee journey, and the beginning of the entrepreneur journey.
So the question is, are you still wearing the outfits from your tumbling days?
No, I can't No, not at all, not at all. I watch it on TV, and that's probably
Ooh, I presume you watched the Olympics.
I did. Yeah, it's painful to watch.
I can imagine, and it takes you back to your career. So, moving on from medals, to getting deals, that's quite a transition. And then taking that leap to set up Joint Flows, which is your company now. How did that come about? How did it, obviously super successful, lots of great companies. Outreach is a fantastic company. What kind of spurred you on to take that leap and set up Joint Flows?
I was very frustrated as a sales executive and then a sales leader with the tools available in the market to help you increase your performance. There was nothing that was fit for purpose in terms of the ability to understand what the buyer needed to go through, each individual buyer, and then to align resource effectively against their buying cycle versus our selling cycle. 99% of sales tech is focused on the seller journey and is dumping the journey down to very shallow, kind of mind-blowing level, which is the seller journey is 5 steps in a specific order. You do a discovery call, a demonstration call, a pricing call, you get into negotiations, and then it's the legal work that starts. If this was as simple as that, everybody would be successful. Now, the truth is that 75% of salespeople can't deliver on the target they've been given because the buying journey is nothing like those 5 stages in the funnel. There's 40 people involved on the buying side. There's 60 milestones to go through. None of them are logically aligned. They happen simultaneously. Different people do different things. And more importantly, each company that is buying something is doing through a very different process. So what makes that a one-size-fits-all? And then why do everything around that one-size-fits-all approach that is wrong to start with? So I looked into the market and I couldn't find anything that was aligned to the buying process, but could then give us the consistency of reporting that we would need at scale internally through a CRM tool. And I'm one of these guys that just I'll fix it then, like Tom did, he fixed his own issue, and we fixed it. And guess what? The problem is true in any SaaS businesses. Most of them can't forecast because they can't capture the buying journey. They can't stitch it with the selling journey. And then everything that goes around it is done manually because nothing can be automated because nothing is in sync. So we created a platform and everybody loves it.
It's definitely solved a very important problem there. And one thing that, as a buyer myself, one of the most frustrating things in buying tech in the last 10 years for me has been almost being forced down a journey by a salesperson. Not that there's anything wrong with the salesperson, but the internal processes, which, by the way, we've had in the companies that I've worked for when I've been the buyer. So I've totally understood where they're coming from, but having to go step by step, this, then this, then this, then this. And sometimes, I'm the awkward buyer. I like to skip a few steps or go to that one before I get to this one. So I totally understand from that idea, which is obviously, been driven like a lot of businesses from a pain that you've experienced yourself and trying to find a solution to that. And how did you go from having that idea to then kind of coming together and having a company? I understand you've got a couple of co-founders. Tell me how that came about.
The problem was so bad that we needed to fix it. And not only it was bad, but it was increasingly bad over time. And even worse, the problem was accelerating.
Right.
So it was getting worse and worse, and it was getting faster and faster to become worse and worse than the previous period. And the expectation from the business I was working in at the time was the exact same. They didn't care what the buyer was like going through. I mean, they did, but they just wanted to see the results.
Mm.
And I was grilled. I was grilled on a daily basis, sometimes twice a day, by the CEO. And I was asked, where's this deal at? Where's that deal at? And the only thing I could do was to push that person back to, it's in stage 4 out of 5 in HubSpot. Okay, but it's been there for a few months. Well, I know, but that's the level of detail I can give you from a reporting viewpoint. And then I can justify why it's there, but anecdotally, through storytelling and text field in HubSpot or in your CRM system. But there's no real evidence to it, if that makes sense, outside of my take on the deal. So what we're doing is we're essentially documenting the buying process and feeding it back into the CRM platform, so that we've got evidence of what needs to happen and when. And then once you've got the evidence of the work that needs to happen, we get it done, right? And that's really the main thing. A lot of sales solutions in the market are really good at telling you or hearing on calls that something needs to happen, but then nothing happens off the back. You're back to your position, which, okay, well, now I need to do the work base. So not only we understand what needs to be done, but then we execute against it.
Got it. Got it. And so going back to your founders, how did you meet? How did you decide to kind of enter in on this journey together?
Through work. I think we are very fortunate at Joinflows to have a co-founding team who has worked together before.
Mm-hmm.
And that gives us two benefits. We know each other very well.
Mm-hmm.
And if you were compare that to football, if you bring 3 players from the same team into another team, those guys can already play together, and then it's plugging on top of that. But there's a core set of reflexes and like mechanisms that are already there. And because we're all sales, we also know the problem inside out. So we've all experienced the exact same thing in different companies throughout our journey. And because it's so acute and so similar, we align on the solution almost instinctively. And that gives us a huge benefit. A lot of founders, unfortunately, fix a problem by proxy, that they've never experienced that. So I used to sell MarTech. I've never run a B2C marketing team in a retail shop.
Hi.
But it's very hard to then relate, maybe through experience and stories. I can obviously understand what's happening, but I've never pressed the button on sending an email to 200,000 people about a specific option. And that experience is kind of very relevant when you're trying to explain a solution to someone. That's not our case, because we've run massive sales teams. So we've also closed our own deals. So we don't need. And the second thing is, we don't need to sell by proxy. And because we use Joinflows to sell Joinflows, we don't storytell other clients' stories as much. We are really just explaining how we're doing a good job at going through our prospects' buying journey and how they could do the same thing had they got Joinflows.
So 3 sales leaders go into a bar. How did they decide which role and responsibility to have in this new world of Joinflows? How did you decide who was going to do what?
Well, one of us has a engineering skill set,
Okay,
and the other two's dope. So that was easy.
that's easy, very logical.
And then, it's not very rocket science. The role of an entrepreneur is to build something, to scale it, and then fix issues along the way. And because we sell to salespeople, we're very much following the clients through their life cycle. So you don't start with clients. So step 1, get some clients. So the focus is on getting clients. Step 2, onboard those clients. So now we've got a dual focus, which is we need to get clients, but also onboard them. So then who's better at getting the deals done? Who's better at onboarding? Is there a hybrid? Do we do both at the same time? And then you follow through. Now they're onboarded. How do we get them to the value as quickly as possible? So that's kind of the training phase. And then we can call this renewal work, or like whatever, but post-signature and post-implementation. And again, you just learn on the fly. And then because it's all sales-related topic, is very much in line with our expertise anyway.
And so you mentioned SaaS. You mentioned, obviously, there's a logical fit within your background. And we know that the way in which the tech world works, especially on the B2B side, it's pretty repeatable. Although, if you're doing a go-to-market that's, sales driven, it totally makes sense. Are you supporting other businesses with different go-to-markets, for example, channel-led? Any organizations that are managing channel partners as well?
A little bit. I'm always of the opinion that you should be able to fix 100% of a problem rather than 5% of 20 problems.
Sure.
And we're excellent revenue execution, which is alignment between teams. So those teams can be internal and external. So alignment between the buyer and seller. And then off the back of that, as I was explaining, internal alignment and then forecasting alignment. But that tends to suit the sales teams, the direct sales teams, B2B sales teams. Primarily, I would say, because we're also early days, so we're trying to niche ourselves into something that we know provide insane results. And then, there's going to be a diversification happening eventually, but so far, so good.
And in terms of your kind of core focus, have you been just focusing on the UK? Are you obviously trying to sell into France, but other countries as well?
Europe, UK, we're based in London, so nowadays, especially in an online world, it's not too hard to have clients that are not in your main country. So we've got clients in the US as well, but at the moment there's a massive ICP for us to go after in EMEA and then in the US. So the two markets are those two. Like surprisingly, we're not super desperate to go France, though one of my co-founders is also French, just because I think there's a cultural difference that is big enough that requires someone on the ground almost to do a better job at it.
That makes
French
sense.
French people can be a little bit chauvinistic.
Really? Goodness me.
Yeah.
I didn't say that, you did, just for the
Yeah.
record. So tell me about the impact on your personal life. So you've gone from being in the corporate world, being a salesperson is pretty much an always on kind of role anyway. Yes, of course you work office hours, but let's be honest, when you're waiting on a signature, or you're working with somebody that's doing their emails out of hours, you're always on. But what's been the shift? What have you noticed most in terms of the impact on your personal life in building a business yourself?
It's hard to draw the line when you start and when you finish the day. And I think because it's multidisciplinary, there's always something to do. Whereas if you're in sales, you're not gonna go and then do marketing or support or product and engineering because you want to. There's an endless list of things that we can be doing. So it's about drawing a line between when you stop and when you start working, both during the day and during the week, and which activity do you choose to take on so that you can have an impact made in the shortest time with the highest increase as possible. And that's hard because there's nothing in place. So it's all assumption based most of the time. So yes, that's the dilemma. And then obviously it's very stressful, right? I've got black circles around my eyes. That things that keeping me up at night, literally. And I've got 2 kids, so it's not, the easiest setup either to launch a company. But you need to find a partner that is supportive of the journey because it's really complex. It's very much the case that it's gonna take longer than you think to get to a result. So budget for that as well, and make sure you nurture your own personal relationship with the person you share your life and your house with, because if that doesn't go well, then that's tough to manage. So I've been personally lucky on that side. I've got a very supportive wife, but sometimes things happen, and if you don't have that right, then you don't want to have to deal with that too.
Yes, I understand. And to be honest, I think having that really supportive partner is essential. Unless you're a young whippersnapper and you're single and you don't have the responsibilities of children or family or whatever, it's a very different world when you've got a family to run and you're still building a business. And you're absolutely spot on. What are things that you to make sure that you don't burn out?
Things that sound very mundane, but the school run, sometimes I can't take it or I can't make it, or I could, but then I need to delay the end of the working day. And all of those things that as a one-off perhaps look a little bit meaningless, but then because they build it's a big laundry list of things that need to happen to run a family. I find it more stressful than running the company. Like being with a kid all day is hard, right? That these people are lovely but they're demanding, and then you have to be fully focused on these well, my two sons. So you can't do it half-heartedly, or you can't be distracted because you're gonna have a strict reminder of, hey, I'm here. Like, can we play this? Can we play that? So like, there's a balance to be hit, but there's also an acknowledgement to have around the fact that I don't think one job is harder than the other, and if anything, perhaps looking after the kids and running the family is more stressful, anxiety filled than your own chosen path of running your own business. Like, there's a choice at the end of the day you take to start a business. Once the family is here, you have to like, that's it, right? So yeah, make sure that you've got the right balance, the right partnership, the right level of communication as well, and then there's nothing you can't fix, but if you don't speak about it, then that builds up.
That's so true. And I think, so as we look forward to the future, I know the company's growing quite considerably. You've been on this journey for over 2 years now. What are your expectations for Joint Flows for the next 12 to 18 months, 2 years? What are you guys expecting to achieve?
So we are going to reach the £1 million ARR milestone this year.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah, that's great. That's I was attending a VC event last week, and they were saying like 99% of startups don't get the business to 10K. Like, finding the first client is a massive it's a massive, how do you call it? There's a massive cut there. Let alone getting it to 1 million. So we're very fortunate. I think there's definitely an element of, we're working really hard, but there's luck that we've made the right choice at the right time, and it's a valid solution into a very complex market. So we get ears and we get eyes on it really easily. Once we're in the mix, then there's a no-brainer wow moment. That's okay. Well, yeah, this is working. But we want to grow, being mindful about how we take on money and what we do with it. And I wanna make sure that the team is fine. If we can grow with super keen, completely devoted employees, and give them the framework to have a personal life, be happy, manage their work, treat them like adults. Like, we're in a remote world. I'm not going into the office. I trust everyone is doing the right job. I don't look into these things. Then I think you create a really healthy culture. And the focus is the £1 million ARR milestone is a byproduct of running the company the right way from a culture viewpoint.
I think that's fantastic. And in my opinion, happy employees mean happy customers, because that joy, the passion that they have for doing the work it's infectious. It does come across to the customer base, and that in turn creates great growth for an organization. So congratulations. I know it's a bit premature, but I'm sure that time will come around soon. And I think you guys are doing an amazing job. For some of the people listening into this podcast might not quite be ready for Joint Flows, they might not quite be at the size. What is the typical kind of sweet spot as to when you would come into a business? How big would the sales team be, for example?
So we find that the value is extracted fully when we deal with companies with 50 people. Often they're Series A onward, turning over maybe more than £3 million. So we're very much SaaS focused still.
Sure.
So on the ARR business models, so £3 million, £4 million ARR businesses, trying to scale using HubSpot, Salesforce, having deal slippage because nothing is telling them what's really happening within their cycles. Those are the sweet spot to extract the full value of Joint Flows. We've got clients with very nimble team, like 4 or 5 people total, and extract value as well because they're in a position to get the engine structured the right way, as opposed to get it started, break it, having to rebuild it when you reached a specific size and then start again. So it's valid as well. Obviously, it's a different value prop slightly, but our ICP is well defined. And then if you're in marketing technology, fintech, or if you've got a sales cycle which is, to your point, feels a little bit complicated, not completely aligned with what the buyer actually needs to go through, then that's Joinflow's time. Like, you should look into it.
Great, fantastic. So for anyone listening to the podcast, how can they get hold of you? How can they engage with you if they want to learn more about Joinflows?
Joinflows.com. We are all over LinkedIn. We've got really good content there, posted almost on a daily basis between the team members. You can contact us directly there. Please do so. We're on a lot of groups as well, or by email.
Wonderful.
That's it for this episode of Tech Startup Stories. Have a story you'd like us to share or a topic you'd want to cover? Reach out and we'd love to hear from you. Until next time, take care.